Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Maybe I should start this differently because it is May the 4th, right?
Star Wars Day.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Let's do this properly. You don't know the power of the dark side, Phumi. So how are you, Phumelele?
Now that I know it's Star Wars Day, I'm so much better.
I know it makes such a difference for adults to be celebrating a show that was like,
which came out 2 years before I was born.
I know, it's so ridiculous, actually. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous, but anyway.
No, it is not. It is, you know what it is? It is the thing about Star Wars, besides the fact that it is a perfect story about a hero's journey.
Yes.
It is also the fact that it is in a galaxy far, far away, and all of their problems are over there far away.
I agree. That's the main reason to like it. Yeah.
But more and more, remember we spoke about this when ChatGPT came out and how excited I was that we're finally moving towards a world where we're going to have robots that do stuff with and for us. I'm telling you, we're going to have a C-3PO.
Don't get too excited. Droid. These are not the droids you're looking for. I'm telling you. All right. Well, the other exciting thing is that the coronation is happening on Saturday.
Is it this Saturday?
Yeah, I'm interested in history. I go and read everything I can. And I found this huge, big book. In fact, I was looking for it yesterday while we were doing the show live. And I was reading all about the coronation ritual and how far it goes back. I mean, it goes back. You can trace a lot of the regalia that they use in this coronation. Most of it was made for the coronation of Charles II in 1660, which is post, Cromwell, who sold all that stuff when he executed King Charles I, chopped his head off. And then there are some things in this regalia that come back from much further. There's a spoon, which they use for the anointing, which could be as old as King Richard I, the Lionheart. So that would be the 1100s, the early 1100s, and would have been around the time of the Crusades. Then there's a sapphire in the top of the imperial state crown, which they say came off a ring that was buried with King Edward the Confessor. And his shrine is in the middle of Westminster Abbey, which is why it's such a holy site. And King Edward the Confessor is still buried there in a reliquary because he was a saint. He was the only English king who was also a saint. And there's a small sapphire in the cross on the top of the imperial state crown, which they say comes from his ring.
Wow.
And there are really, really ancient things about this that harken back to the coronation of Athelstan in 900 and something.
Ooh.
Before that, in 973, King Edgar, who was the first to put into play a coronation ritual with the archbishop of the time, a guy called Dunstan. And if you trace that back even further, there are elements of this that go back to, the coronation anthem is that Zadok the priest, which they use for UEFA, right? But Zadok the priest was written by Handel, and those words come directly from the Old Testament.
Wow.
Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anointed Solomon king. Solomon being king of the Israelites in 900 BC.
Wow. Now I'm excited.
Now we're going all the way back.
Because, what excites me is watching, because nobody does that kind of TV like the Brits. Like the BBC have got this thing down pat.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Where the cameras are, who you see, who is sitting where. Thank you, Ryan.
I did say it's going to be a watered down peasant coronation in some way, because instead of inviting all the aristocracy who've been there for every coronation for 1,000 years, Charles has invited members of his charities and NHS staff and fat people in pink T-shirts who will all be there.
which also is,
I mean,
is
look at
always
this
this is
Jason.
and those people are the people that Churchill never really wanted the world to see, us
Ugh,
in the colonies.
Little Britain.
He didn't want us to
Yeah,
see those
Little
people.
Britain. Let me show you this picture, right? So here's a picture of Prince Edward talking to a whole bunch of fat Little Britain British monsters.
Why are they in
There they
pink
are.
t-shirts?
I don't know, but they're at some event, and these are the kind of people who Charles is going to invite to his coronation. There's one in a wheelchair, and there's one with no hair, and there's one
There's
who's
no one in the
morbidly
wheelchair in
obese.
this thing.
Obese. Listen to me, obese. No, this one's in a wheelchair. I fucking promise you, that one's in a wheelchair. Look, it's in a wheelchair. Look, see?
Okay.
Those are the kind of people that Charles is going to invite. Anyway, the idea of this, the order of service, the fact that it's actually a religious ritual is ancient. It goes back to ancient Egypt and Persia. I mean, it's really that old, the idea of this. So for people who like a little bit of pomp and circumstance and ritual, this is like Christmas, Easter, and the World Cup final all in one.
the World Cup final in China.
Yeah. And then Slippery
that
Pickle.
was the Olympics.
Slippery Pickle asks, are they doing the coronation of the stone of Scone, which you spell like scone, C-O-N-E?
And
But-
somebody did
Yeah, they've
did it down the line.
they brought the stone of Scone from Scone Palace in Scotland, and they put it under the chair of King Edward. Edward I, but it's named after King Edward the Confessor. That chair has been the site of monarchs being crowned for. Monarchs have been crowned in that chair since the late 1200s. So, I mean, this is old shit.
So, but here's my
Old.
thing, right?
We see buildings in Cape Town, and we're like, well, that's an old building.
I just want to say, right?
Go on.
A chair from whatever, the stone. I just want to say, what is wrong with all the cabinet makers today and the
That no one's using their stuff.
No, not that no one's using their stuff. My kitchen is 15 years old.
Yeah.
And stuff has to be replaced. What the hell? The hell, guys?
You know what the English are like, though? They love holding on to old shit. So they do have, that's not the...
But it's because it's still working.
So that chair is not the throne. The throne is a new chair. The wooden part that is gilded is old. It's about 200 years old, but they put a new fabric on it. They reupholster it effectively with King Charles III's
crest and stuff.
They call it a signet. So it's the royal cipher, the CR and then the 3. And Camilla has her own one as well. And she's going to be, you don't like Camilla? I have invited my family.
Queen consort.
I've invited my family on Saturday morning. We're going to watch the coronation together. My brother couldn't give a shit. He's not, I've uninvited him because he's rude about Camilla. But everyone else is coming. And we're going to have tea and cakes. And if you're going to be rude about Camilla.
Are you gonna have cucumber sandwiches?
Probably. And if you're going to be rude about Camilla, you're uninvited. It's that simple. I will not brook any aggression against good old Camilla. I like her.
Queen consort.
Mm-hmm.
You like her?
I like her.
Tell me more. You like her? Why?
I've always liked her. I think she's the real deal. I've said before, first of all, for all those people who believe in love, which I don't, this is the real love story. Charles and Camilla have loved each other since they were teenagers. They eventually got together despite all the things that were thrown in their way. They're getting married. They got married. They're now getting crowned as king and queen. It's a beautiful story. This is the real fairy tale. That's the first reason. Second reason I like her is she's never looked for attention. It's never been about her. Despite all Harry and Meghan's protestations, this is not a woman who's put herself front and center. She's always there as a support, there as someone who is there to help and to be in the background. She's not interested in looking for attention for herself, which I think is admirable beyond belief. Unlike some other people in the royal family who are constantly trying to get the attention.
Charles's Dr. Nandi.
Well, that's one hell of a way to put it, but yeah. Third of all, she smokes and drinks, and she has a foul mouth, and she tells fun jokes, and she's got personality. And just because you don't see that in the pictures and she's not acting out for the press doesn't mean she's not a cool person. So I like her. I think she's awesome. Anyway, it's going to be a fun thing to watch. So I'm hugely into this because
tell
it's
us all
history. And
what time does it start? So obviously on the BBC.
So I think it's meant to start at 11 o'clock South African time. I think it starts at 10, or it could be 11 o'clock UK time, which means it would start at 12 because there's an hour's difference.
Which means just wake up and turn on the TV.
Yeah, right. Lovely. Well, I mean, what time do you wake up on a Saturday? Lovely Lady Lee says Camilla is a ride or die. Yeah, exactly. She's like Castle. There we go. You see, she's all these good associations. These people, I like the people who listen to this show.
She's like Castle in
as in Castle Lager, probably. Congo Chris says, when does Charles pull Excalibur from the stone? I don't think he'll be able to grip the handle with those salami fingers. Well,
shame, man.
So there are 4 swords that make an appearance in this coronation ritual. There's the sword of mercy, which has got its end cut off because you can't stab someone with it, and it is used as a sign of the king's mercy. So he has, during the ritual, there's certain things that he has to do with each of these coronation regalia. Then there's the sword of temporal power, the sword of spiritual power, because he's sort of a priest,
but he's also the head of the church.
Yeah, the anointing that happens is a very religious part of the ceremony. In fact, the queen, the former queen, the Elizabeth II, didn't want that part of the coronation ceremony filmed. And I don't think Charles will either. So it's under a canopy, and they take this holy oil, which is called chrism, which they make in the Holy Land, and it is Charles has. He's elected to use a vegan option because usually it would contain ambergris, ambergris, which is from Wales, I think, and something else from some kind of stoat or something. Anyway, they've got a vegan form of this coronation oil, which he will be anointed with, and the anointing comes from the kings of the Old Testament. David was anointed, and Solomon was anointed, and Saul were anointed. They were the first kings of Israel. Because remember, the Israelites of that time had judges. They didn't have kings. And then they asked God for a king, and God said, all right,
here you go.
Here's Saul. And Saul was a terrible king. And remember, he was replaced by David, who was the singing shepherd boy. And then David was not allowed to build the temple because he slept with Bathsheba and sent Uriah to the front lines, something like that. And then Solomon, his son, was allowed to build the temple. But Solomon is the model for all wise philosopher kings that came afterwards. And there are elements of this that are Byzantine. There's a beautiful pavement in the middle of Westminster Abbey, which will probably be covered by carpeting during this time. But that pavement has been in situ since about the 1300s. Late 1200s, early 1300s. And it is based on the pavement in the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, which was the center of the world on which Roman emperors were crowned. And the idea of a crown, by the way, the original crowns the Roman emperors wore and the Persian emperors wore before them, and possibly even, other Mesopotamian rulers, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the crown is meant to symbolize the rays of the sun coming out of your head. You know how they used to do mosaics of holy people?
Like when you see...
They'd have a halo.
Yes.
And the halo is the rays of the sun coming off of you. So that's where the crown comes from. A circlet or a diadem or a crown is that. Isn't that interesting?
That is That is... So definitely waking up to watch the coronation now. Actually,
yeah, I think it's going to be a hell of a show.
To you, but also as I'm listening to you, because this is what I love about all these kind of rituals when the BBC has them, is the constant kind of giving you the information about all of these little things.
They always have They always have someone who talks like this.
Maybe we should have you kind of
sure.
narrating all of these things
I thought about it, but I thought there'd be like 10 people who'd give a shit about this stuff. And
it's 10 people who matter.
Well, anyone who's listening to the show now, I mean, if you're not bored to death by this stuff, but you will now watch this on Saturday and you'll know a whole bunch of stuff that the rest of the people watching won't. And there may be some guy on the BBC who'll go, and now this ancient ritual, which of course originated at the time of King Athelswith.
that is without a doubt. So, because also, I don't know what it is that they teach them about why they must have this soothing
calm,
voice, and almost at a whisper, because I don't know.
Listen,
because it's inside the church.
Do you know that there are?
They've brought
do you know that there are 2 crowns?
No, I did not know that.
Okay, so there's a gold crown that was the one that was made for King Charles II's coronation in 1660, and that one is the one that Charles will be crowned with. It was the same for his mother and his grandfather, great grandfather, and great great grandfather. But that is not the most precious crown. It's made of solid gold. It weighs about the same as a brick.
Do you think his neck can handle it?
It can. I mean, if
they tried it on?
If his mother's neck, a thin little woman's neck in 1953 can handle it, he can handle it, right?
Do you think?
You think his ears will help to stabilize things? That's what you're saying. And then there's the imperial state crown, which is the one that you've seen before. It's the one with the purple inside of it. It's got that cloth of purple. It's got that big ruby in the front, which is the Black Prince's ruby. So that ruby was worn at the Battle of Poitiers by the Black Prince, King Edward III's son, who wore a feather in it. You'll see if you look at it very carefully, you have to find a
now you have to
picture.
find the zoomed in picture.
But you'll find it if you're interested. It's actually a spinel. It's not a ruby. A spinel is sort of a semi-precious stone. It's a semi-precious stone, but it looks like a ruby. And it's got a ruby in it covering a hole. That hole is what a feather would go into. And the Black Prince was the Prince of Wales, and the Prince of Wales' symbol is feathers, and it comes from that ruby because he would have worn a feather in that. So that's how old that is. Talking about the mid 1300s now. The second biggest diamond in the world is in the front under that Black Prince's ruby, which comes from here, which was gifted to King Edward VII by the South African government at the time when it was discovered at Cullinan. And the biggest diamond in the world is in the scepter, which the king holds in his right hand.
Right hand.
His left hand. It's his left hand. He holds the orb in his right hand, his scepter in the left hand. And that has the biggest diamond. Now, I mean, these are stones. They weigh quite a lot, even though they're diamonds, they're not as heavy as iron.
But
it's heavy stuff.
Yeah, but his hands, we know his hands can handle it because there's enough surface area for them to hold it all together. And and we're gonna see all this. I think that's the fascinating thing, and because it's been so long since there's been a coronation. Before, right. I mean, people didn't live as long. There were many other things, as his mother has lived.
Yeah, but she was around such a long time. The only people who would have seen a queen consort being crowned with a king would be people who are in their 90s.
Wow.
Because the last queen consort to have been crowned would have been the queen mother with George VI. So that's going to be an interesting part of the ceremony.
But also, TV wasn't what it is now. It's not like
No. Now
they would have heard it on the radio.
Yeah, exactly.
They would have sat next to their little wireless.
That one wasn't televised.
And listened to, because this is also, the thing about the BBC is they were there then. That's also why they have such a good oral history. They know how to tell these things because they were always the theater of the mind.
That's exactly right. So welcome back to the majesty of radio, because that's what radio does. Anyway, so for those people who came for a bit of Star Wars, you've got what you wanted.
Good morning, everybody. This is us completely.
For the people who came for a bit of history, you got what you wanted. Propaganda says, and what is happening in our country? Well, we've got the burning platform coming up later for that, and Canthan will be in as well. So lots of excitement around that.
There's a lot happening in our
Enough
country.
with this coronation crap, says Stink Mina. The symbolism of English crowns rings similar to crowns in Africa. The Cullinan diamond was shipped to England in a coat pocket. That's true, because they put it in a big package and used it as a decoy. And can you imagine being apparently the guy who cut it into all the various diamonds that were eventually, the stars of Africa, as they were called. That guy, when he hit the stone the first time with that foot, he fainted because was so terrified he'd fuck it up. The Queen's coronation was one of the biggest ever televised events of its time. It was the biggest televised event of its time. In fact, they sold more TVs before the coronation proportionally than they have ever sold in the world. And millions of people all over the world watched it. So this is bigger than, the biggest event of last year on television was not the World Cup. It was the Queen's funeral.
Yeah.
More people watched the Queen's funeral, and more people will watch a coronation than will watch a funeral. So this is the biggest television event for this year.
The anticipation.
Guaranteed. Yeah. All I remember from TV back in the day was ETV on a weekend at midnight, says Ricky. Okay, you guys are
what
really
happened at midnight
bringing
on
all the good
ETV?
shit here. Well, I think that was when they put on the softcore porn. All right.
Righty then.
Okay, we got some other stuff to get to, so let's do that. We can always pick up on this coronation shit when people are interested and they're not. Phumi wants to talk about the beef and this universal feeling of being irritated by absolute strangers. What is going on with you? Are you becoming a grumpy old woman?
Yes.
She said it straight away.
Yes.
All right, tell me where did this...
No, but have you seen beef? So first it has to, have you seen beef?
No.
Because you absolutely, and
Is
everybody
this a
who
TV
has
show?
it's a TV show.
Okay.
You have to watch it because it is astounding. And it's really cool. It's a cool TV show. It's well shot. It's amazing. It's got amazing actors. It's got all of the stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the center of it is this beef between a woman and a man who are absolute strangers.
Yeah.
And it starts out with a road rage incident.
Oh.
And it completely
Relate to that.
And this is my point, right? Because this is the thing. And I'm just like, do you know the kind of, and you see it driving here in Joburg.
I think
road rage is...
People are having relationships they didn't even want at the start of their day. You think about how much energy is being invested in hatred and anger on the roads. Oh my God.
Strangers.
Yeah, but I used to be one of those people.
Really?
I have not had, touch wood, there's wood here somewhere.
Yes, that's the top of the desk.
I've not had road rage for a very long time. I mean, I still get annoyed occasionally. The other day, I started shouting the C word out of my window with the window open.
No.
Because people had blocked this intersection during load shedding and they weren't letting cars through. And I'd been sitting there for 15 minutes?
Okay.
So, I mean, I was just up to here. But normally, in the normal course of things, when there isn't load shedding and an intersection isn't blocked, I kind of am able to laugh it off and I'm listening to podcasts and I'm chilled.
Listen,
but there are people who this is their whole life is getting angry with other people in traffic.
And I think it's on the rise. This is why this whole TV show has resonated with so many people all over the world. It's just this universal hatred of absolute strangers. And part of it, I think, is just channeling anger, because you can't be that angry at people you do really know. I think that's part of it, is you're actually angry about a whole lot of other stuff. And this absolute stranger is on the receiving end of it. That TV show I watched it over a weekend.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was thinking, these people are absolute strangers and they're so invested in obviously the absurdity of TV, right?
Sure.
But
I don't think it's that not far-fetched. I mean, it's not that far-fetched because people love getting angry.
We do.
I watch my dad in front of the TV when the news is on. And I say to him, why are you they can't hear you, right? But it's important for him to get it out.
But it's also like if you're watching soccer and your team's not doing well, it's you're just like, rah. But I think it's you see, so it's not just that I'm becoming a grumpy old woman.
Well, you are.
Everybody is.
You are becoming a grumpy old woman. But yes,
grumpy.
Everybody is. That's about right. Well, we want to hear from you this morning, and there's lots to talk about. There's lots of news that we have to get to as well. Apparently, Ooh, this is a big story. Well, maybe. EWN reporting. Senzo Miyiwa's friend, Mthokozizi Twala, told the court that he was fetched by police from his Durban home over 4 years after Miyiwa's death, under the guise that he was going to an identity parade in Joburg. Then he arrived and he was beaten, tortured, and humiliated in order to admit that he murdered the football star. And he said he didn't, but he was forced into this. In other words, under duress, he confessed to a murder. He's one of 7 people who were present when robbers allegedly entered the home of singer Kelly Khumalo during the incident, shooting the Bafana Bafana captain in October 2014. 5 men are standing trial for the crime.
It was that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
2014.
2014. It's as long as Cliff Central's been around. A teary-eyed Twala told the court he was fetched by police. He couldn't breathe to an extent that I thought I would die there. Breaking down in tears, he detailed how he ended up in the office of Lieutenant Colonel Joyce Buthelezi, where he was severely beaten and suffocated by 2 unknown men, just for him to admit murdering Miyiwa. Buthelezi was the investigating officer in a parallel case to the one currently before the court, where Khumalo, Twala, and others were present when Miyiwa was killed, and they were listed as the accused. So if this is true, this is deeply disturbing, because any confession that is elicited under torture is not admissible. Now, why would he only be telling this story now? Why didn't he come out and say it at the time? Maybe he was terrified. Why would they be trying to make this guy own up to a murder that he didn't commit?
More importantly, who is so invested in all of this and has this kind of power? That
they would torture a person.
That they would get police to torture a person.
Right. What are you saying?
I ain't saying nothing. I'm just asking questions. Well, I ain't saying nothing.
I'm jumping to conclusions.
I'm just asking questions. There's so much happening. And you remember the old judge with his afro?
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
He's got his own problems now, stemming from his altercations with Advocate Tifo, who's back.
Oh, yeah, he's back now. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's more questions now than answers.
It's a dumpster fire.
It is a dumpster fire, and I think it has been from day one. Apparently, one of the people who looked at these tickets was our own Mashiane, our own Mash. He was looking for a 9 Rand Fly Sapphire ticket.
To where?
Well, this is the point, right? So a record number of 1,425,000 people tried to get their hands on these 9 Rand tickets.
What?
Yes. Kirby Gordon, the chief marketing officer at Fly Sapphire, told News 24 on Wednesday that they were very pleased with how the sale went this morning. The local airline put up 50,000 seats for only 9 Rand for any domestic flight departing between 3rd of May and 30th of November.
Oh, wow. So it was actually
It's gone ahead.
Well, so 2 big marketing coups then this week. Because first was the Checkers has never seen so many.
Oh, what happened with Checkers? I don't know about this.
You don't know
the
about
Prime.
Checkers
Oh, Prime. Yeah.
Right.
Prime.
So
Okay,
Checkers has never seen so much traffic.
Listen, we even tried a Prime on the show yesterday live. Ryan fell for this thing hook, line, and sinker. He went and bought one.
Is he 12?
He went and bought one for everybody. No, he did a taste test with Jane Malachi here at the studio yesterday. I did one live on the show. Lebang tried it on Tuesday. Mash tried it. We've all been part of that marketing exercise. But Mash, by the way, who was very critical of Ryan and the Prime, was online to try and get tickets for.
From what time? From midnight.
So it kicked off at 9:00 yesterday using a waiting room system. Slowly, it allowed people onto the site to ensure that it wouldn't collapse under the pressure. According to airline data, 1,425,000 people tried their luck on the site, nearly 200,000 more than in 2022. Our website handled a record volume of traffic, they said, and sales rolled through without any hassle. During peak demand this year, the airline processed sales for 492 tickets a minute.
Yay!
Yes. By 20 to 2 yesterday, the airline had sold 50,372 tickets at 9 Rand through 16,487 individual bookings. Most tickets were sold on flights between Johannesburg and Cape Town, followed by flights between Johannesburg and Durban. I mean, how great if
Johannesburg and Cape Town, Johannesburg and Durban.
But if you got a 9 Rand ticket to Cape Town or Durban, I mean, you would think yourself quite lucky.
I think we must also consider that all of those people in that waiting room were not doing their jobs. Like MASH was very unproductive yesterday.
Oh, totally.
Because
I'm sure he did nothing.
And that kind of makes me like.
Ryan says the server did crash on MASH. So. We'll find out from him what happened. But I don't know if he got any tickets, but a lot of people did. So 16,000 odd people would have picked up all of those tickets.
This is very funny.
That means
Congo, Chris.
4 tickets a person once you got through. Okay.
Good for them. Because people are trying. You're trying. You're trying to get a vacation. I think you're getting tickets for 2 people, 2 return tickets for 2 people.
Congo Chris says we live in a world where you can get a plane ticket for less than the price of a fancy Logan Paul Lucozade. Clown world. Absolutely.
It's a totally upside down world.
Treshka said she's one of the lucky clients. She got a 9 Rand ticket and got a second return ticket less 30%. My total cost for a return ticket from Cape Town, 964 Rand. I mean, that's brilliant.
Wow.
Well done. Took her 2 hours, though. So she was completely unproductive.
Useless for 2 hours. Not doing your job as vegan.
Yeah. So Sanela says, has AKA's murderer been found, or is Becky Cele and his boys going to go with the Senzo Miwa approach on that one too? Well, you see, I mean, even famous people, you'll never know who killed them because our police are so cuck at their jobs.
Okay, and speaking of murders, because yesterday...
And if it won't happen to famous people, it will definitely not happen to you and me.
Not happening for us.
Forget about it.
Listen, speaking of famous people or infamous people, because yesterday was the bail hearing for our wonderful Dr.
Nandipa. And what happened?
I think I read a thing about the murder charge being dropped, for all 8 of them, and then there were 2 more people added as co-conspirators. But that is not the craziest thing that happened yesterday in this Thabo Bester saga.
What was the craziest thing?
Last week, Karen Moon went on one of the TV shows talking about this and talking about kind of what they're discovering, as all sorts of people are now discovering more and more things around this bizarre.
It's so bizarre.
Case. And she spoke about how in the visitors' logs to Thabo Bester, looking at the number of people who went there to visit him, there are a number, and these were the words of Karen Moon. There are a number of celebrities, famous people that you and I both know that are on our TV screens quite regularly, who went down to visit him, Thabo Bester. That's what she said.
Okay.
Of course, that set like Twitter on fire. Who could these people be? Who are these celebrities? Why were they there? Da, 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 da. And one of the names that almost immediately came was Mamkize, right? Former Sean Pisana.
Okay.
And on Sunday morning, she woke up and made an Instagram live saying, guys, please, I'm not the only famous person in this country. I didn't go and see this guy. It wasn't me.
Oh, just denying, straight up.
Straight up denying it.
Okay. Do we believe this denial?
Yo, I'm just on the sidelines watching the shit show, right? And yesterday, some girl named something Gema, now I've forgotten her first name, I'm forgetting her first name, put out on her Instagram, unsolicited, not asked for by anybody, a statement about how she only ever went to see this guy once in April 2018.
And is this someone we know, or is this not a famous
It's someone people know. It's someone people know. Other people know this person. She put up the statement, I only went to see this guy once. I was owed money for gigs that I had done for 21st Century. Remember, 21st Century is Thabo Bester's media company.
Right.
And immediately the backlash. I'm like, I didn't know that you, young lady, you should not have put out the statement.
Oh my God.
Then, of course, I think we need to replace SAPS with Twitter, because people on Twitter will find everything around anything within hours, right? Suddenly people are asking her. Apparently this girl's husband died in an attempted hijacking 8 months before she went to see Thabo Bester. So people are going, now we must ask this question. And also, if you were looking for TK Motsepe, who's the person that Thabo Bester was in this, why were you gone to a prison to see Thabo Bester if you were owed money by TK Motsepe? Why were you owed money by a company that was only launched 3 months after when you went to visit? This poor girl's life is unraveling.
Well, again, the Twitter FBI, right?
Sims. Thank you, Stink Mina. Sims Ngema is the girl.
Ngema.
Yeah.
There we go.
Dude, she's since removed the statement from her Instagram account. Now that everybody is asking her all of this stuff. Yo.
Well, I want to know who else is on that list.
She could have just kept quiet.
Why didn't Karen Morn tell us who was on that list?
For this very reason?
Was she drinking? Because if she just told us what was on the list, it wouldn't be such a serious thing, right? Now, when people don't know, in the absence of facts, people will make up things. There will be conjecture.
A vacuum.
Right.
Nature abhors a vacuum. You know, when you put a chair in your bedroom, suddenly all the clothes that you wear
will gather on it.
Gather on that chair.
Tracy says Jessica Fletcher has nothing on the Twitter investigators.
Yo.
Oh, you're so right. Eh?
Yo.
Sure. It's unbelievable. And then everybody piles on.
Yo.
But I do think it's become just like a feeding frenzy as well.
What?
Because there's such a nastiness to it.
Again, it's the universal hate of strangers.
Yeah, I know, but I really don't like it on Twitter, because here's this girl who, look, ill-advised. She's stupid and she's probably looking for attention. But the fact that they all pile on her and like now suddenly she's the bad person, people are just so desperate to make someone else look horrible.
The bad person. No, nobody is saying she's a bad person. People are just asking questions. And these questions need answers now. Now that you've caught our attention, young lady, tell us.
I bet Somizi was on the list. He loves some famous... This Carl. Jesus. All right. Well, that's one hell of a way to put it. Oh, my God. All right. Apparently, there's a new Alzheimer's drug which slows the disease by 1/3. This is very good news.
That is very good news, especially for people like me, the grumpy old lady type.
I mean, you know, there was no, if you got Alzheimer's, that was the end. You were finished. You were going to slowly lose your mind, deteriorate over time, and then eventually you wouldn't remember where you were or who you were with or who your family were or anything. But experts say we're now on the cusp of drugs being available, something that had recently seemed impossible. The company Eli Lilly has reported its drug, which is called donanemab, slows the pace of Alzheimer's by about 1/3. However, 2 volunteers, possibly 1/3, died as a result of dangerous swelling on the brain. So there are obviously complications which can arise from these. Any drugs are experimental. But they say it is proven to slow the disease.
And are you going to have to sell your liver to get...
probably in the beginning, yeah. Oh, yeah. We're entering the time of disease modification where we might realistically hope to treat and maintain someone with Alzheimer's disease with long-term disease management rather than palliative and supportive care.
Alzheimer's is horrendous.
Yeah, it's really
my paternal grandmother. You just watch a person disappear.
Oof. That's what happened to her?
Yeah, you just watch a person.
Horrible.
You just watch a person become less and less of who they've always been, and they don't know who you are, and they don't. It's horrendous. It's horrendous. And the thing about it is, you're physically all right.
Yeah,
you're physically all right. It's your mind that has just.
Hardy Dave says, my mom just joined the Bowls Club recently. It's only a matter of time now.
Oh.
Lion's mane mushroom reverses Alzheimer's. It helps repair neural pathways and creates new ones, says Slippery Pickle. Oh, yeah. So suddenly, what, you're a pharmacist?
Reverse Alzheimer's.
No, listen, it's great if they've discovered this thing, and I hope it works. And, as far as I'm concerned, great. The more medical science advances in terms of discovering new ways to treat things, the better. I'm all in favor of this, and I think we all should be. Anyway, I can't remember. What were we talking about? Sorry. It's over?
Huh?
Is it a fridge?
Huh?
Fridge?
What are you talking about?
I don't know. Anyway, I'm a mycologist, says... who says this? This is...
Mike, what is...
Oh, a Slippery Pickle.
What are we talking about now?
Slippery Pickle is a mycologist. Yeah, well, that's like saying you're a numerologist. So I'm sorry, I didn't... that's mushrooms. Myco is fungi, so something around that. I don't know. I maintain I have a conversation with your conversation with your significant other. When your mind starts to go, use a pillow and be firm, says Tracy.
Hi, man. Guys,
yeah, I think so.
Man. It's early for this kind of...
Hey, listen, you got to plan for every eventuality, right, Phumi? Come on. And then, I don't know if you saw this. I watched a video when I woke up this morning at like 4:30, and I thought, what the hell's this? This is some nonsense. There's a video of some social media from Russia, and they show this thing exploding on top of the Kremlin. And they say it's a drone attack that was meant to assassinate Vladimir Putin. Now, I don't know whether I believe that. First of all, this thing doesn't look like it could have assassinated anybody. Okay.
Are you going to show us
I'm going to show you an image. I'm not going to show you the video because I can't get that in time. But here's a screenshot of this explosion right on top of the palace in the Kremlin, just off Red Square. You see that explosion there next to the flag? They say it was a drone attack. And I don't know if this is a serious thing, whether we must take it seriously or not. But the Kremlin are all over this. They're saying, we have unverified footage.
Unverified.
Showing smoke above the Kremlin. And a second video shows a small explosion over the site's Senate building while two men appear to clamber up the dome. The Russian presidency said Ukraine had attempted a strike on Mr. Putin's residence in Kremlin, and they describe it as planned terrorist act and assassination attempt on president. How convenient. So what, they can now they can use small nuclear devices on the Ukraine because someone attempted to cause a firework above the Kremlin.
A drone strike.
Because this doesn't look like it would have hurt anybody. It explodes above the building. Anyway, this stuff.
And that looks like
flag,
a small explosion.
Yeah. False flag. That's what I'm saying it is. Anyway, we'll see what happens. And it's just convenient that everyone was filming right there and then, right?
Oh, at that time. When was that? At that time of the night. So it's very busy. I've been to that little Red Square area, and it's very, very busy, and everybody obviously has their cell phones
this
out.
is in the middle of the night.
But that's the middle of the night.
And it's cold.
It's always cold in
Russia. Right. Anyway, so that's what we
Even when it's warm, it's cold.
I don't know that that this is a serious thing or that we must take it seriously, but the Russians are playing it up, obviously, because it makes it look like, someone's trying to kill Putin, so now we have to kill someone else.
If someone tries to kill Putin, do you think he's gonna not travel because it's not safe, and then he's not gonna come to South Africa, and then we're not gonna have to have?
Maybe we won't have to have Alan Windy. Alan Windy's gonna go and arrest him. This is the same guy who was so pro lockdown.
Alan Windy doesn't have to.
Alan Windy was going around
arrest him, and Cyril Ramaphosa's
Alan Windy, who was vaccinating himself live on TV. He's like, everybody must get the vaccination. Got to obey the lockdown rules and stay at home and stay safe and stay home. This asshole's going to arrest Vladimir Putin. I think
if Putin stays home and stays safe, it'll be better for all of us, because then Panyaza
No
kids
one's going to
don't have
arrest
try
Vladimir
and
Putin.
Stop Alan
I'll tell you
Windy's
what,
kids.
no one has to worry about Alan Windy. I can promise you now, a slow motorized wheelchair could get away from Alan Windy. Let's believe what the Kremlin says. They're not known for propaganda, says JP. Absolutely. 100%. Jason says that missiles from the Ukraine with love. As opposed to from Russia with love. Carl says, I've also been to Red Square. I bought Hugo Boss Energize. Really nice fragrance.
Nice.
People have jokes. People have jokes today. Very exciting.
Carl is awake.
So am I the only one who's going to take the trouble of having a coronation party at my house on Saturday morning? Am I the only one? You're not doing it. You're just going to watch.
I'm gonna. It's a watch party. It's a watch party. I'll be watching along with
I'm very disappointed that no one else cares about this thing except me.
My favorite watch parties are always watch parties that include the internet, because you must also watch the ongoing like commentary on the internet.
You have to.
So like my watch party is gonna be, I'll be in my onesie. I'll make some tea. Maybe I'll get some scones.
You've got to do something English.
Okay, I'll
have some tea.
I'll have some English breakfast tea.
There we go.
And some scones.
And you must have it with fine china cups.
And then I must hope that
wear a hat.
That I have electricity.
Wear a hat, Phumi. Will you wear a hat?
I will wear a hat. I have hats. I have hats. I'll wear a pink hat in solidarity with the pink t-shirts.
Are you cooking, Gareth? Says Ancient Ether. Are you out of your mind? What would I cook? Are you crazy?
English breakfast.
And by the way,
an English breakfast.
No. And this involves, it's a late morning thing. So it's too late for breakfast and it's too early for lunch. So it'll be.
Do you think I could have a mimosa?
Yeah, sure. Camilla will. There's one hidden under the throne.
Do you think she'll have a hip
flask? She's got a hip flask.
She'll have a hip flask with her.
She's going to backstage there. Isn't it? I'm telling you, before she comes out, she'll be having some of that. Gareth, your sausage fiber finger, I think he means, watch party is the whitest thing you've ever done. Shut up. Shut up.
Carl, we're gonna mute you. We're gonna turn your mic off, Carl.
Yes, you are the only one, says Sanele. And you can fill us in on Monday too, because we won't be watching at all. Okay, well, Sanele's not watching. You got to do a quiche.
People are gonna be rude about this, but come Saturday morning, my friend, come Saturday morning, we'll have tons of electricity because we'll be on stage 1 or whatever, and we'll all tune into the BBC.
I'm not going to watch it. Or I'm going to watch it, says Congo Chris. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Unless you are extraordinarily lucky, it would be stupid not to watch, even if you're anti-monarchy. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a big, show. It's a show. They're putting on a show. There are 6,000 soldiers who will be on parade afterwards. That's huge. Listen, the Queen had 16,000 of them. So it's significantly smaller.
How long do you think Charles is going to last?
Well, he's 70. How old is he now? Look this up.
How long do you think he's going to last? Because there could be another coronation soon.
Let's see. Charles the third. 74. Okay, so if he's 74 now, how long has he got? Maybe he'll get to 9. Maybe he'll get to 84, 90. So he's got 15 years.
So there'll be another coronation soon. There'll be another one.
But every time they water it down, this is the problem. It's like the Queen's one was a proper ancient historical flashback, right? And this is going to be like, they're going to try so hard the common man's kind of thing, and it isn't. This has got nothing to do with common people at all. But they're going to do it. A lot of people talking about as long as his fingers don't pop.
Aye man, guys, don't be rude.
People are really interested in King Charles's fingers, huh?
Although seeing King Charles's fingers was quite a shock.
It is shocking.
It was quite
it is shocking. I totally agree. I mean, they've got to put a ring on one of those fingers, right? There's the sovereign.
They've had to resize it.
It's called the sovereign's ring. They put it on as one of the things that happens during the coronation. Now, the problem is Queen Victoria, they made it so small that it didn't fit on her finger. She also had fingers like, who knows? But the Archbishop squeezed it on. And
wow.
And they couldn't get it off of her finger afterwards. And it hurt, apparently. I mean, little Queen Victoria is probably she could run under this table without bending her knees, and she was.
So they had to resize that ring.
Yeah.
Maybe they had to add some gold to make it, or they've made it much, much thinner.
London called, and Joanne Strauss answered ahead of King Charles' coronation. Soon London is calling. She said, "Okay, but so Ryan sent me this thing of Joanne Strauss with King Charles, but he's wearing a poppy, which means that this could only have been done in November of some year, long before this. He also looks considerably younger in this picture. I don't know if Joanne Strauss is trying to like muscle in and be important because she realizes this is a big deal.
Which one is Joanne Strauss?
Joanne Strauss was a former Miss South Africa, and she was on top billing.
Oh, okay.
And she's represented the country at both Miss Universe and Miss World pageants, respectively. So,
okay.
I don't know.
So what does she have to do with the coronation? Now I sound like I've got Alzheimer's.
I don't know. I don't know that she's got anything to do with it. I think she's posted an old picture where she's clearly with King Charles, so she's met him. And she says, "I'm truly fortunate to travel the world, hosting events for incredible organizations, charities." She quipped with her followers to guess what the king was saying to her in the photo. At the time of the publishing, the former Miss South Africa didn't share any more details of what she was host for. But Ryan got super excited and said, "Ooh, well, Joanne Strauss must be doing something for the coronation." I don't know that she is.
I don't know if we should take Ryan's excitement seriously.
Yeah, I mean, he
also got excited about Prime.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know, Ryan.
Anyway, Congo Chris says, "Fun fact about Queen Victoria, she was wider than she was tall when she died." It's quite probably true.
That is weird.
Monarchy is bullshit, says Yaku. But it brings about 1.2 billion pounds in a year, that is, and only costs the taxpayers about 100 million a year. Free entertainment for the world. Oh, yeah, and people love this stuff. You know, I know black families where the granny and the mom have a picture of the Queen on their wall. That's here in South Africa, where there's no reason for them to care about the Queen.
What are you talking about?
Big thing.
In the Commonwealth. We're in the Commonwealth.
We are in the Commonwealth, but come on. There's that word again, common.
The Commonwealth.
No, we don't have anything. Listen, I don't know. Cyril's not going, I don't think. I don't think Cyril leaves his house at this point. He's more of a hermit than me.
Of course Cyril leaves his house. He has to go for his walks. I've seen him walking in Rosebank, actually.
You have?
Yeah. He has to go for his walks.
Did you swerve? Sorry. Ay.
I was with the boys. I was with Kanego and Kumo. And they didn't believe me because I saw some of the security and I was like,
you said there's Cyril.
Then I said to them, and they were like, no. Like, yes. They're like, no.
I'm going for a run. Have you seen my iPad? I seem to have lost my iPad. Anyway, Brandewyn asseblief says, is pro-Russia Canton.
He lives near where Thabo Bester lived.
Really?
Thabo Bester was Cyril's neighbor.
Oh, really? Jesus, you're teaching me things. Brandewyn asseblief says, is pro-Russia Canton in today? Yes, he is. Pro-Russia Canton.
Russia.
Joanne Strauss is one of the nicest and most generous people you'll ever meet. Photographed her last year. She gave me a pair of retro roller skates, white with pink wheels. So much fun.
Wow.
No, she is nice. I've met Joanne a number of times. She's lovely. I just don't know what her... I think everybody in England is doing something around the coronation. So if she's in England, she's going to be doing something. I had dinner with a friend of mine. She came in on Tuesday. and she told me her street, because she's going back on Saturday. She's going to miss the coronation, but they're doing like 5 street parties in just in her street in London. So everyone's doing this. Cyril should go so he could experience power. Lord knows we don't have any. What a puss that guy is.
Shame, man. Shame.
King Charles is only one oily breakfast away from a heart attack. I'll watch the next coronation, says Nightwolf.
Nightwolf, you must watch all of them. But you know, but what it and somebody made the comment about what this does for tourism in the UK.
Huge.
This is why.
That's why they're going to put on a big show on Saturday.
This is why they have to put on the show.
And don't pretend.
Because now you want to go and see the mosaic in Westminster Abbey.
Exactly.
Now you want to
go. And have you ever been to Westminster Abbey? The queue goes down the bloody street for miles. Now listen, all these people who are so full of criticism for my 20-minute rant about the coronation this morning, you're all going to be watching. You sons of bitches. I know you're going to be watching. You're going to be loving it. Millions, if not billions, if not tens of billions of people.
Listen, the FOMO alone.
8 billion people in the world. A majority of the world's population will be watching
this. The FOMO will get you.
Right.
The FOMO will get you. You'll log on to the You'll log on to the internet, onto your social media. People will be posting about it. You'll turn on the radio. People will be talking about it.
Thank you very much.
Just
tell them,
watch
Phumi.
it. Just
tell
watch
them.
it.
Tell them they love it.
And now that I've said that, I'll be sending my invoice to the BBC.
Right, exactly. Phumi's also going to be. She's going to be on the BBC commentating. That's how you know.
Well, I'm very, very excited about the prospect of being crowned. Camilla being crowned as my consort. Well, as you know, it's going to be a tremendously ancient and marvelous ceremony. William will be there paying homage. Harry will probably be hidden in the background somewhere. Meghan will be in Malibu, as I understand it. Very good. All right. So
having her own watch party.
Her own watch party. Well, I don't think she's going to be watching. I think
of course she is.
She's probably going to have tea with Serena and Oprah.
They'll be watching.
You think so?
Oh, they'll be watching.
All right. We're going to be joined by our own Kanthan Pillay on the Burning Platform next. And we've also got a special guest popping by to join us on the Burning Platform this morning. None other than Penuel, who calls himself the Black Pen, at God Penuel on Twitter. That's a very humble name on Twitter. He's a YouTuber, podcaster, author, and speaker. And we're going to focus on some of the things that he's interested in: electoral reform, independent candidates, life beyond politics in civil organizations, and meritocracy, and also letting South Africa crash, which he thinks is necessary. Of course, I can see Phumi rolling her eyes already. We'll find out what she thinks about this next. Stick around. No, you were rolling your eyes. Don't lie.
I am
we saw it.
Rolling my eyes.
We will join Phumi and Kanthan and Penuel next. Stick around.
Every time you listen to that 80s show, Tom Cruise lives another 10 years. Every Friday on CliffCentral.com, Paolo and Dory review movies, reminisce about old songs, remember childhood places that are now car parks, and say some outrageously rude things about Patrick Swayze's brother. That 80s show, new episode every Friday, live or as a podcast on CliffCentral.com.
Perfect is the enemy of done. Right? We can sit forever building the perfect plan, or we can just go and do it, right? And build and evolve as we go. So yeah, I mean, sort of the question of so where do you start? Figure out one thing you want to improve from an outcome perspective. Not a let me do this part. Figure out what that outcome looks like. What does done look like, and then work back from there. Right? So okay, I need better visibility of my accounting package, my CRM, my billing platform, my mail server, whatever it is. I need better performance. Right? I need to be sure that when I leave the office or if I go away, things are going to carry on working. Cool. Let's understand that outcome. Then let's start looking at it from there.
I'm Jacob Voigt, the CEO of Catalytic, and this is Unbundle. In this series, I help to demystify technology in the world of business. Join me as we explore how technology can make your business better. In this episode, can you manage without monitoring? We're chatting about monitoring of a business's ICT environment. We're chatting about what to monitor, why to monitor, and when to monitor.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
A factory in Brazil, and they were recently busted for building replica supercars. I think we have a photo of one. So if you look at this shape here, I mean, that's clearly a Lamborghini. And specifically, that's the Riventon, kind of the features. It's not identical, but I mean, to pass off as a replica, you can see why this can be problematic.
Did they put a Lamborghini badge on it?
Put a Lamborghini badge on it. The only difference is that they changed the engine. So, for instance,
look at that shop. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right. We are live. It is Thursday morning, the 4th of May. May the 4th be with you. And we are busy with the burning platform, which this morning is, as always, attended diligently by Phumi and Kanthan and I. And we are joined also this morning by our special guest, Penuel, the Black Pen. You can find him on social media. He's also a YouTuber, podcaster, author, and a speaker. He's got 2 YouTube channels. You've been busy, man. Namely Penuel the Black Pen and The Penuel Show, which focus on education, conversation, challenging minds. He's also created his own belief system, which we have to get into. It's called Penuelism, and he's a proud father of 6. How old are you?
37.
And you've got 6 kids already. Jesus, you've been busy. I thought Lebang, who's got 5, has been busy, but Penuel's got 6. Holy hell. How do you even have time to podcast or YouTube or anything with kids?
Children are just a hobby, man.
Oh, really?
I'm kidding.
It's pretty much the same way that Jacob Zuma has time for court cases, right?
Okay, right. Ooh, we're being thrown in. We're being compared to Jacob Zuma straight up. Sure, Penuel. All right. So, listen. Tell us first of all a little bit about you, and we'll get into like the things you want to talk about in politics and current affairs this morning. But give us the précis of like where you come from and what you are and what you do.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here.
Sure. Nice
Especially
to have
meeting you, Gareth. I know we've spoken before offline. I'm a boy from Newcastle in KZN. Grew up, matriculated there. Then I moved from there, went to Grahamstown in Makhanda in the Eastern Cape.
Mm-hmm.
Did my undergrad accounting and economics at Rhodes. And then I did my honors in accounting at the University of Johannesburg. I was meant to finish my entire journey to becoming a chartered accountant, but somewhere along the way, I kind of fell off. And then expecting my first child, I decided to go work. Luckily, I had qualifications, so I went into banking, worked for the 2 biggest banks in the country. And then later on, the entrepreneurial bug bit me. I went into business for a couple of years. That collapsed grandly. And then here I find myself today trying to be an alternative voice, I think, in this country that needs more alternative voices.
Well, you come to the right place on the burning platform. This is like a alternative voice nirvana. All right, so let's get into it. We got a couple of things to talk about this morning, and I don't know where we're going to start because, of course, just another boring week in South African politics. I mean, the last few shows, we've really hit the ball out of the park with like Glynis Breitenbach, and we had Musi Maimane. I saw you had Musi Maimane.
I did.
Right?
Did. Very amazing gentleman. I was speaking to Ryan.
You find him amazing?
I find him amazing.
I think he's he's a nice guy, but I can't say I'm amazed by him. I'm not one of those people who's like blown away by Moose.
No. He's not mind blowing. What I was saying to Ryan off camera and off air was, I think he's quite idealistic in a country that is very emotive with a masses that is still easily fueled white monopoly capital, etc. I think
people love that shit.
I think as the type of leader that he is, he's not what the majority of South Africans are ready for yet. But I think he's a really good human being, and I think his heart is in the right place.
All right. Well, we have to get into some of the issues around criminal justice system. I mean, Phumi and I were just breezing past 2 of them this morning, with the Senzo Mayiwa trial still something which we have no clarity on. This Thabo Bester situation, which it appears is way more seedy and mysterious than we'd even thought. We're still waiting for someone to tell us who killed AKA. I mean, these things should be within the purview of a working criminal justice system. We had Glynis on the other day. She said it's not a lost cause. She doesn't believe that the criminal justice system is a big, ugly thing. She thinks it's something that should and could and must work in a fully functioning democracy. Do any of you have comments on that before we even get into some politics and party stuff and elections around the corner?
I think Glynis is actually being a good person, exactly in the way that Penuel was just talking about. She's actually not wanting to throw shade at her colleagues, her former colleagues, really. But I think that, God, I look like Darth Vader
Congo
today.
Chris looks like, you look like
Nice
Darth
one, Chris.
Yeah. And you've already been
sure.
called pro-Russia Kanthan Pillay this morning. So
pro-Russia Kanthan Pillay. I can either be Darth Vader or I can be pure Russia. But Darth Vader is on the side of the Emperor, and the Emperor is Joe Biden.
Okay, hang on. So before we move on from this thing around criminal justice, because I know that you want to defend yourself on the Russia thing, but the other thing is when we're talking about Russia is this supposed assassination attempt on Putin, which was like a little tiny explosion above the Kremlin. You don't believe that was a serious thing, do you?
No, it wasn't a serious thing. And Putin
okay.
certainly doesn't take it seriously. I mean, these guys are trying to, seriously launch a drone strike from 450 k's away. No, really, guys. I mean, would they like to take him out? Yeah, probably, most definitely.
Of course.
But I think it's far more likely to happen in the form of a terrorist attack, which is kind of the way in which that Russian journalist was taken out while he was giving a talk. And or in the case of the daughter of Alexander Dugin, who was Daria Dugin, who was taken out by a car bomb. So Ukrainians look like they're pretty good at that type of stuff. So if you look in terms of the footage that we're now getting coming out of Bakhmut, we see that there's lots of booby traps that have been left en route as the Ukrainians are beating a retreat from there. It's it's an interesting setup. But no, I don't think that the assassination attempt, really matters.
All right, well, let's go straight into the stuff that I think is on Penuel's agenda, and maybe we start with electoral reform. I mean, we're going into an election supposedly next year, and it's going to be the election that everybody says we must watch most carefully. We need to know who's actually running the IEC because the ANC are going to try and rig it. We hear that there are all kinds of coalitions between the bad guys and the good guys. What is your overview of what might or might not happen next year? And we're going to hold you to this because what we do on this show is we will replay this at election time and we'll see how close to the mark you are, Penuel. Go ahead.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
It is our last chance to get rid of the ANC.
Right.
That's what everyone keeps saying.
That's what people say, right?
I think it's a pile of rubbish, to be fully honest. Just going back to the criminal justice system, I don't know if it's because we are a religious country, but it's like we live on some type of fake hope. I don't know when we will give up on the Senzo Mayiwa case. It's like the arms deal with Jacob Zuma and co.
You think we're just going to move on?
To be fully honest, I worry about how much energy, money, time we spend on stuff like that, where we all kind of sort of understand what's kind of going on. What do we want to see? We want to see someone arrested and then clap hands and then what happens from there? The movie's over.
Yeah, because we know even when they go to jail, as in the case of this Thabo Bester situation, they seem to have a really good life. They get visited by celebrities and politicians and get to have TV and internet and phones and get to run their business from there.
It's a good time.
No,
so what's
guys,
the point?
No. That's a very glib statement to make because we do actually have a criminal justice system that does function in a very real way. That's why we've got jails that are full of people, right? So just because the Senzo Mayiwa case is a big personality, that's the reason why it's on TV. But there are courts all over this country that are full every day with many dockets.
Do you really believe that?
I absolutely do.
You believe the people in jail are the right people and that the system works? We've seen the biggest celebrities in front of our eyes with footage.
Yeah, these are the ones that we get.
You
like,
know,
Imagine
but
the ones
these
we
are the
don't
ones that
see.
you see.
Pub-
I'm
public
saying to
interest in.
you, these there are
I
10
think it-
cases
I
you
think-
see out of hundreds of cases,
And I think
and
that-
you want to use those 10 cases as
and I think
the
the ones that no one's paying attention to are even more sad. That's what I think. I'm with you on this
Yeah.
one.
No,
Penuel. Let me just tell you a quick story. So a friend of mine is an advocate in Pretoria, right? He sent me a video on Tuesday, the day after the public holiday. There is a line of legal professionals outside the High Court in Pretoria.
Yeah.
Just a huge queue. It stretches down the road. He tells me that the reason for that is that normally at the front door of the court, they scan the laptops and you have to fill in a book where you take your laptop in and out because obviously they want to monitor what goes in. There was one book. There are usually 5. There was one on Tuesday. So so the entire legal system in Pretoria was held up because one stupid security guy at the entrance to the court didn't put out 5 books for laptops to be filled in for, which no one looks at anyway. And only one was put out. This is the kind of thing. And by the way, he did also mention that you have to step over human feces every couple of steps outside the court because homeless people are literally shitting outside the court. How must we take the criminal justice system seriously if this is the way it presents itself to the average South African, not even in the legal profession, just people passing by in court, that there are human beings shitting outside the courtroom?
Maybe let me say this in closing before we move to electoral reform. My pessimism comes from the fact that I know lawyers, I know judges, I know criminals, I know perpetrators, I know people that work in and amongst the system, and it's because I know a lot of those people personally that I don't believe in it. Maybe if it was far away in America, I'd say, oh, maybe it's great, but I know a lot of the people that are
you left out our favorite, the NPA.
Oh, of course.
I mean, anything to add on this, Canton? Because I think Phumi has some sort of retort to us, and she's standing her ground.
No, I think it's a fair comment because we've clearly seen that there are lots of people who are, theoretically above the law, and when you have that scenario where justice is reserved for some and not reserved for others, you have prima facie cases of people who would obviously fail lifestyle audits. And our Minister of Electricity, walking around with a R1 million watch on his wrist is a prima facie example of that, but nobody's going after him. So I don't believe that we have a criminal justice system that's actually functional. I do believe that one can worm one's way out of it. I do believe that the price tag for buying out members of the judiciary is actually a very low bar, because if you look in terms of the amount of money that's splashing around versus the amount of money that's actually available, do I believe that judgments can be bought? Yes, absolutely. I'm not pointing fingers at particular judges, but I think that there's lots of us who actually have...
you'd be in contempt of court if you did.
I don't have a problem with being in contempt of court. I just don't want to, single out judges without actually having a significant smoking gun. But there certainly is a trail.
So
Phumi disagrees.
Just because no,
you've got
I
an unenviable
here's
job
the
here.
thing.
So
here's the thing.
Phumi knows when she ends up in court, the judges are going to be on her side.
Just because we want certain people to be in prison, just because we want a certain way of justice to prevail, does not mean that the 240 prisons we have in this country that are overfull, right, do not have the right people in there. That two things can be correct at the same time. Just because you want to see a Jacob Zuma in prison, just because you want to see a whoever, you want to see bigwigs in prison and in orange overalls, does not mean that the system is not working in some parts. Two things can be correct at the same time. And I'm simply saying that it is a glib statement to say that, nothing works, people have to walk over faces. Two things can be correct at the same time.
That sounds like Gareth.
Phumi, this is like the car is not running, but the tires are not flat.
Is it a fucked up system? Is it a fucked up system? Maybe it is a fucked up system. And you guys know this. When Shamila Batoyi 5 years ago got put into the job, we sat here, well, not here, but we sat in the studio, Gareth, Gareth and Kenthan and I. And I said to you guys, I want to see her do something. And y'all asked me to give her some time. She's had 5 years.
Yeah, we're still waiting for her to do anything. I'd like to just see her do anything at this point.
5 years. 2018 is when she got the job.
Oh, I can't believe we're going down this road again. But we paid this woman a salary for 5 years to do absolute bugger all.
But and the fact that Penuel, and the fact that
Yes.
you know lawyers and judges and criminals and you know people in and out of the system and you know people who can buy their way out of the system. I certainly hope you also know people who are in prison serving their time.
Sure. No, I'm gonna end it here.
means-
Otherwise, we'll keep it dragging. I think
Yeah.
we need to move to electoral reform. But I hear you. Yes, not everyone who's in prison is innocent. The system is not to be fully thrown away. But my closing shot is just the majority or the bulk of the system is just really, really broken. And
All right.
for the fact that we can't convict at like things that an ordinary citizen that is not trained, if we're failing at that level, it becomes very scary for the rest.
I think we have now strayed into the area called the obvious. So now let's move on to electoral
Gareth,
reform.
just before you move, I just want to point
Right.
out that I wrote a few years ago a very detailed analysis of whether or not Jacob Zuma could get a fair trial. And it all ties in with the way in which narratives get built and media manipulation comes into play. And Bayes' theorem actually features there as well. And I'm going to tweet a link to that piece for those of you who want to go down that particular rabbit hole.
All right, Penuel.
Beautiful.
Electoral reform. Let's talk about how you foresee the election taking place and what you think is going to happen and where you think we need to reform our elections.
2 weeks ago, I was in Cape Town, hosted by Dr. Michael Louis. He was one of the co-founders of the ACDP. He's now the founder of the One South Africa movement. They are the people that have been pushing for electoral reform. They are the people that took the current policies on voting to court and got the Constitutional Court to deem the way we vote unconstitutional. So essentially, it shouldn't be that you have to vote for a party. And that's why we're getting independent candidates next year. That's why we're going to have 3 instead of 2 ballot papers, and people will be able to vote for independence. How that's going to look is going to be very tricky. And the incumbents, unfortunately, are working very hard to make it as difficult as possible for a valid independent candidate to get decent votes or to keep all their votes, etc., etc. I think it's still too early to call, but I'm just happy that some steps are being taken for the future. I just hate the people that are in charge of what's happening in terms of voting.
Well, I mean, do any of you actually think that independent candidates will make a dent in the system? You know, America was talking about a third-party candidate for 100 years. There were people like Ross Perot, and you know, there were all these third-party, these kind of outsiders, and then they got a third-party candidate in the form of Donald Trump, who wasn't really a Republican, but who turned the Republican Party into his animal, and then they
into
didn't.
his bitch more
And
like
they
it.
didn't like it at all. They didn't like the idea of this third-party candidate, and obviously he's completely changed the character of the Republican Party. But do we in South Africa have the ability to think outside of the party system? I mean, I don't know that people can. I think it's great to have independent candidates, and I think it would be in municipalities and in local sort of regional competitions for votes, it would be good. But I don't see it working on the national scale. I think the party system is so deeply engendered in what we do and the way we think about things.
I think it's early days, but you're 100% correct. The whole point of this is mostly for local government. But if you introduce it at a national level, it starts the conversation. It starts getting people to understand that I do not necessarily have to vote for a party. I can vote for Gareth. I can vote for Phumi because I've seen the work that she does on the ground. And we'll hopefully move back to what we had before 94, which is mostly constituency-based voting, where you're saying,
you know who
Gareth
your person
represents
is. Yeah.
this area, and when he's in parliament, he
That's
must
who he's
speak for
representing.
our area. And anytime he gets dragged into funny politics, we must remind him,
Mhm.
we can remove you and put someone else who's going to represent our interests better.
Oh, here's a question from somebody who says that you are an agent. Question for Penuel. How much of your online activity is toward AfriForum goals? Do you work for AfriForum?
Must I answer that?
Yes, of course.
Jeez, I'm going to get fired from up. No, I'm kidding.
Good one.
Go ahead.
So I joined AfriForum as a paying member last year, and I've been wanting to join for a couple of years. And I think because of the work they did on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, that was the thing that made me say, you know what, I think I'm now confident to take all the beatings in public. I personally know a lot of Black people that are paying members who would never confess in public. Some of them are actually politicians, big business people, farmers, etc. I decided to go out and speak about it for many reasons. One of them being just the conversation of what AfriForum is about and the work they do, which I realize people that attack me are not even aware of what they do. In their opinion, it's anything Black, they attack. If it's Julius, they attack. But they do a lot of really great work in communities. And I think specifically for the Black majority in this country, it would be nice for them to see organizations like that and be like, we think we can copy this in our communities and do something similar. So it's a conversation.
You're paying AfriForum, they're not paying you. Is that what you're saying?
Unfortunately, geez, I'm giving money to these white Afrikaners. What?
All right, what do you make of that? Anybody want to throw in a comment there? Because someone clearly has been.
Well, they
paying
don't just
attention.
have white Afrikaners, you know, they have Black Afrikaners as well.
And they have Black non-Afrikaners as well that can't speak a word of Afrikaans.
You know, the obsession that we have online and in some spaces with color, with Blackness and whiteness, and delineating what people do or say only based on that is what makes people go, oh, why would you want to be a part of that? I think the joy, the beauty, the good thing about where we are in South Africa is you can make that decision. You can make that decision. And it has nothing to do with anybody else. If you decide that these are the people that you believe in, that you want to give your money to, that's great. That's great.
When you're Black,
you should be allowed. You are allowed to do that. You are allowed. And this is why, for me, even as we talk about electoral reform, right? I still think we have an incredible constitution, and wanting to change it now is wanting to go back in time for something that maybe we believe could have, should have. We have a constitution that allows even the small voices to have representation, right? With proportional representation. And so that allows each and every single one of us to participate if you want to participate.
Well,
and this is the way you want to participate. I don't know why anybody should get into a fight with you
we have
about that.
We have among us someone who did stand for election and did actually run in the last election with a registered party, and that's Canthan. And your experience was interesting. I mean, you didn't get the numbers that you wanted, Canthan, but there were a lot of people who supported you, and I think it was a very brave and principled stand that you took, proving to people you can do this if you really want to. It's a lot harder than people think, though, right?
Well, there were a couple of fundamental screw-ups that we made last time around, because remember, none of us actually understood the way in which the electoral system works. And we made a fundamental mistake in that we only put ourselves onto the national ballot, whereas we should have put ourselves onto the provincial ballots as well, all of them. And if we had, then we would have ended up with at least 3 seats in parliament, because we didn't understand the way in which the provincial allocation actually ended up working. But hey, we kind of took that on the chin. The problem that we've got right now, and Penuel, I'd like you to just, give me your feedback on this. I think that the current electoral reform is actually a Trojan horse. And it's a Trojan horse that ends up favoring the ANC. And so let me tell you why this works, okay? Let's say we have a scenario where we have a person that's running as an independent, okay? And that in this case, let's use Zaki Ahmed is an example of someone who is now running as an independent. And let's say Zaki ends up with 50,000 votes, okay? 50,000 people end up voting for Zaki. But the amount of votes that Zaki needs on the proportional ballot to get into parliament is actually 30,000. All right, I'm sucking these figures, guys, just for illustrative purposes.
Cool.
The 20,000 votes extra, Zaki is not able to allocate that to anyone. Okay, so those are votes that get forfeited.
Right.
And so really what happens is that in that scenario, those votes which would normally have gone into a pool for a particular political party now effectively get lost. And that's why the scenario that we've got right now completely favors the ANC. It's disastrous. And I think that we're only going to feel the impact of this next year when the results actually come out. So, a lot of people have been asking whether I and the rest of us who stuck our necks out last time would consider going in. Well, this time around, the scenario is actually a lot worse. Last time around, we actually had a fighting chance. This time around, I think it's strongly favoring the ANC.
All right.
It was.
Pumped? Sorry.
I think it is a foolish move to want to change the rules of the game just as the incumbent is losing. They are losing.
Yeah.
The job really is on the political parties that are the opposition parties to give people a reason to vote for them, to get out there and campaign and give people a reason to vote for them.
So you think
unfortunately, almost all of them, all they are saying is, let's get the ANC out. They're not saying, let's get the ANC out because we can do this and this and this. Give us the chance.
You're almost in the same camp then as those who would say, don't waste your vote.
No, I'm not in that camp. I am not in that camp. I think people should vote for who they believe will represent their issues, people who will represent what they stand for. I am definitely happy that there are so many new people stepping up to the ring, putting their hands up, because what that does, like we talk about capitalism and giving lots of products shelf space, what that does is it makes everybody up their game. Let everybody up their fucking game.
Okay. Cool.
Tell us what you're going to do. It's not enough to say we're not going to be those guys.
You're smiling, Penuel. You agree?
To some extent. One of the points I wanted to make to Phumi earlier is in this country, if you're black, you're kind of imprisoned. You have to be Pan-African, pro-black, we want the land, etc. You're not allowed to be different, alternative, have your own opinion, work with sets. You almost get imprisoned, and it becomes sad.
Allowed by whom?
No, this is from the AfriForum discussion. This whole concept that if you have a voice and you say something that is not in line with whatever they think you should be saying, you kind of get bashed, is what I want to say.
Who's they? The ghosts are in your head.
No. These are people online.
People online.
These are people online. These are people that speak to you.
There's an approved opinion and there's a not approved opinion. Look, you don't give a damn. I know you don't. And I know you don't give a damn either, Penuel. But a lot of people do. And I'm afraid that this is also something, and I'm treading on difficult territory here because this is not stuff that white people should be saying. But I'm very worried that there's some kind of inculcated idea that all black people must think a certain way because that's how we became liberated.
It's bullying, to be honest.
Well, yeah, and
they bully other people because if you're not strong-willed, strong-headed, if you don't believe in your conviction, then you kind of like, okay, whatever you say.
But there was a feeling of solidarity brought about liberation, right?
Yes.
Black people standing up with other black people against a common enemy.
Yes.
And that is translated in a post-liberation world into a universe where you have to, there's an approved black position on things by a majority who appoint themselves.
Yes.
Which is ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. But it is, there's an element of that hangover of standing together against the common enemy for liberation that is now moved into, you can see it in America, you can see it here, you can see it in other countries. I mean, I've just been to Zimbabwe now and we know what's going on there. Emerson Mnangagwa is still not called an election for God knows how long. Came up in the burning platform the other day. These are things that we need to talk about. And it all comes into what you said just now, Phumi, about how we tend to look at things and delineate people along color, class, religion, whatever ways we can separate people become the ways we identify people.
Because it's easy.
Yeah, of course. It's lazy.
I mean,
it's lazy.
It's very lazy.
What people do is they just relegate what is their power. So you can stand up for yourself, or you can just, it's easier to be quiet. It's easier to not say. It's easier to not participate. It's easier to blame than to stand up and do something. It's easier to just sit back and go, whew, Baya Peta. That's
course.
it,
I want to
right?
respond to
Phumi,
Catherine.
when are you running for election?
I want to
No,
respond to
but-
I
Catherine's
do
question
other things.
about the
Go ahead,
Trojan
Ben.
horse.
Yes.
Dr. Michael Louis did say, because Cyril Ramaphosa did sign in a bill about the independent candidates, and he's like, it is trash. And yes, you're right. A lot of the votes that are going to be lost end up probably going to the majority party, which might be the ANC. I think when I started, I did say to you guys that the incumbents are going to do everything they can to throttle and make this as difficult as possible for independence. But it's a step, hopefully. We've got over 40 million South Africans over the age of 18. 40 million. We currently have 26 million registered voters. And then of the 26 million registered voters at the last elections, I think we had either 17 or 19 million people
18 million.
that voted. So for me, at the very least, what independent candidates are meant to bring is, since I don't believe in the ANC, the DA, the EFF, but I believe in someone, at least I will have a voice and I will say something. And that participation is more important than kind of being forced between these three parties that you maybe do not like. We do have a lot of people putting their hands up, Gayton McKenzie, Chris Papas, etc. And yes, they represent certain parties, but some people love them beyond the party. And if you're putting in that type of work over 5-10 years, and if you educate the majority to say, follow the people that are doing the work, I'm hoping that that'll allow us to graduate from, I'm just part of this party, but to actually ask, what is this person actually doing? I hope.
Can I ask a question of all three of you? Because this came from a listener of ours. And I often feel that these are the most important issues that people are dealing with on a daily basis. And they don't always have to do with party politics. So this is from a listener of ours called Ricardo. Okay. He says, I'm a business owner. I have 2 liquor stores. Labor law, that's the Labor Department, want to come and do an inspection for the second time since last year. I normally get the documents ready for them and I comply, even though it takes a lot of my time and I stay calm. My feeling now is that the government are wasting my time with stuff like this. They can't supply electricity. They won't go to the shops on the back roads. They always target the main road, which is the easy target. I pay UIF, PAYE, compensation fund, VAT, etc. But what did they do for me? And then they make me do all this paperwork as well so that they can tick boxes. Are little businesses, small businesses, medium enterprises, whatever the government always gives us lip service for being these things, are we being burdened with an unnecessary amount of red tape and bullshit by a department that really does very little for either the people who work for us if we have small businesses or the people we work for if we're the employees? Why are they getting involved in stuff like this? Kanthan, you can start with this because I know you've got strong feelings about small businesses and government.
Well, it's because, for individuals to succeed goes entirely contrary to the idea of having a capable state, which is an idea that both of our largest political parties are wedded to. Whereas we know that really the most crucial thing that one can do in order to kickstart this economy is to get rid of the freaking regulations. Now, when we have, 40 million unemployed people, but we put in place a minimum wage law, which pushes up the price of actually hiring people, that's regulation that's actually screwing up things. When we are trying to kickstart our domestic wine industry, but the price that you're paying for a bottle of wine, the majority of the money is actually going in tax, that's a direct result of regulation that's actually causing things to fail. When the tax structure just becomes so complicated and you have individuals who are not earning a regular salary needing to actually file their taxes 4 times a year and have their accountants go over it. Gareth, you and I know about this stuff because we run our businesses. And, we have to be doing this stuff on a regular basis, and Phumi as well. So, yes, definitely. But you are not going to get either of the large parties at this point coming around and saying that we actually need to toss out these regulations. You're not, because they
slippery pickle in the comments says never let a vampire inside your home or business. Ain't that the truth? You want to add something to that, Penuel?
I do. In a situation where you are in charge of running a country and your biggest campaign funders arguably the biggest taxpayers are your mates, you're going to kind of do everything in your power to make sure that smaller players don't become big. And this is kind of how it's done. I mean, it's similar to the independent candidates, to be honest. And the guys that end up becoming big, when you look at it even historically, not just in South Africa, the guys that broke laws, bended laws, got maybe some big foreign guys who backed them, etc. Because as a small guy doing everything by the book, you're almost never going to make it. And there's a lot of cases of that happening. They're just trying to throttle small businesses because they're not serious about getting rid of unemployment. It's mostly about ensuring that their friends
But we've got a
remain big.
minister of small business. Doesn't that solve everything? It's like we've got a minister of electricity.
Do we still have a minister of small business?
We've got a minister of small business. We've got a minister of electricity. We've got a minister of women. Have they helped you this week?
Minister of small business.
Guys.
No, okay, I'm just asking.
What do you say about this as a small business owner?
Guys, you know my feeling about government and the level of regulation that we have for small businesses. But I do think that this particular conversation, and I also saw that email, and I had some thoughts, and it's two conversations collapsing into one, right?
Okay.
So there's a big conversation around policy and red tape and all of that kind of stuff, and then there is a small conversation around the menial workers in various departments all over the country, right? So if you are just a person that works at SARS whose job is and checking the
Paperwork,
VAT forms
bureaucracy.
and doing all of that stuff, you're doing your job. You are simply doing your job. And your job is there is this stack of papers that you have to go through. And that's what, this person is also chafing against. And that's why I'm saying there are two big conversations happening.
I see a solution.
There's a policy conversation happening, and there is a person doing their job every day.
You're not going to like it, but here's my solution, is that this listener of ours, he sits down with this guy from the Labor Department, and he says, look, how much to not have you come here anymore?
Boom.
Yeah. How many bottles can I send to your house for you to just fuck off?
And be part of the problem.
Yeah, but
let him be part of the problem.
I
too.
see this. See this as a solution. I mean, what do you say, Canton?
Well, in most countries, Gareth, we've talked about this on the show before. In most countries, corruption is just another line item.
Yes.
On your income statement, right?
Yes.
So the difficulty that we have in South Africa is that corruption is not a measurable line item. So, we already have one extent of corruption, which is the 15% VAT that we end up paying. So, we're able to account for that as a business expense. We try and work our way around that as much as possible. But it is a finite amount. We know that it's going to be 15% VAT. The trouble when you're dealing with the likes of this corrupt official who's coming to audit you on a regular basis, you've got no way of actually setting a particular bar. So when you don't have certainty in business, that's when things actually fall apart. Mm-hmm. So I was talking, for example, of the fact that why is Zimbabwe still managing to work? Well, because there is actually certainty in terms of the corruption. Very specific example. You know at any given stage what the differential is between the official exchange rate and the unofficial exchange rate, and you're able to budget for it. And once you're able to budget for it, you're able to work out your profitability, and everything fits into place. Guys,
and this is the other thing. One of the things that I thought about when I read that email is that this particular individual is part of a group. Their business is part of a group, and this is why being active and being banded together is the opportunity that you use the muscle of being in a big independent group like he is. Let the big guys, the reason you pay them to be in their little franchise is for them to make the phone calls, is for them to use that muscle of being a group and make the right phone calls to people to say, listen, our guy has been audited 3 times this year or whatever it is. That's why it's important to know who your counselor is, because you've got to annoy them and let it be their problem. That is why if you are in an organization, if you have a small business in a particular industry sector, you must know who your industry sector representatives are. That is why you must know who the
All right,
person
well,
in parliament
this
that
is
is
what I'm hearing.
representing your constituency is,
This is
so
what I'm
that you
hearing.
can annoy the fuck out of them so that they can do their job. That is what is holding accountable. That is what holding people accountable for the positions they get paid for is.
The little guy is always the one that follows the law to the T. And the only way, what Phumi is saying, the only way to win is to join a gang. That's all I'm hearing.
That I don't think that's an unfair summation.
We'll call it a regulatory body, just so it, it sounds politically correct.
Colleen says Stella Ndabeni-Abrams is the small business minister. Well,
Yes.
that's why it's working so well, obviously, because she's just amazing. Zunaid says,
Who's Stella Ndabeni?
Yeah, she was communications
Has
before.
she made a new blazer for her new department?
Zunaid says, I worked in the DRC. It's not called corruption there, it's called facilitation.
Boom.
And it is not deemed an issue. I break the law every chance I get, says John Bad Dog.
Wow.
Oh, man. If that's the case, then Canton may just be in with the gold mafia.
Jeez.
Is that possible? That's a hell of a leap to make. Maki says, nice one, Canton.
Oh, my God.
Right. Listen,
No.
I feel like ordinary people who are just trying to live their lives and do as many of the things they want to do as possible without breaking the law do get punished. I think the little guy gets punished. I think if you're stupid enough to renew your car license and to pay your rates and taxes and your rates and taxes, and you are dumb enough to comply,
Yeah.
then you get nailed.
Yes.
Because they know where to find you.
Guys, being a citizen is an active job. It's not a once in every 5 years you put a cross next to someone's face. It is an active job. That is why. And I mean, it sounds fabulous to say, oh, well, then join a gang. It gets a rise out of people.
Well.
But fuck, the reason society works is because we have rules in place, but you've got to be part of making it work. If for you it looks like joining a gang, then fucking join a gang.
Phumi, I just want to point out, and a lot of listeners have noticed this, that you have become very foul-mouthed on the show since its inception. Phumi never used to speak like this. We have dragged you down to our level,
You
and
are
now
irritating me.
you use foul language. All right, well, I know there are a couple of other things on your agenda that we want to talk about. So let's talk about meritocracy for a minute. And I know this is something that also Phumi and Canton are very big believers in. Are we a meritocratic society? Are our politicians, do they think in terms of merit? I mean, it's clear the ANC don't. We just mentioned Stella Ndabeni-Abrams, who's got no qualifications of any use whatsoever and has been moved from department to department to department. All of our ministers have. Some of them have absolutely no idea what their department does, but they get moved around because it's really just putting a person in a job. And that's a kind of, I don't know if it's a leftover of their Russian and their Marxist flirtations in the 1970s, but they don't really believe in merit in the ANC. Do the other parties believe in merit? Do South Africans believe in merit?
I'll tell you, the reality is that other parties don't. They speak about cadet deployment, and you look at the people they send out to do stuff. South Africans, weirdly, I do think believe in merit. It's just they cannot exercise merit where the systems are very strong. I say this because South Africans are very passionate. The majority of them are very passionate about voting for black leaders. Very passionate. And they say, oh, apartheid and the struggle. And then you look at who they want to work for. And you look at which businesses they want to buy from. And you look at where they want to send their children to school and which neighborhoods they want to live in. They know the best. They know what the best is. They know it comes at a cost. But for some weird reason, because of the rules and regulations and propaganda, they vote almost against everything else they believe in. The solution, everyone says it all the time, the solution to this country is fixing the education system, making sure that our children have real skills, number one, making sure our children understand political systems, economic systems, and in that, making our children understand, and I'm loving this analogy I use these days, seeing our country as the Springboks and saying, do you believe that the 400 members in parliament, if they were to go to a World Cup, would actually put up a fight? And if not, who do you think are the people that, if you could pick them, would be the greatest political players to take on Putin, Xi Jinping, Biden, and knock them out of the park? The people on the ground know. But because of the systems and because of the current electoral processes we have, we're stuck with a lot of clowns. The average South African probably knows 10, 20 out of the 400. They don't know the rest. But they can tell you every player in the PSL, all the guys that play rugby at the highest level, etc. It shows that we actually don't believe in these people. It's as simple as that for me.
Gareth, you might remember the conversation that the very robust conversation I was having with Helen Ziller was telling her, look, focus on exactly the stuff that people want to hear. Focus on the delivery. Focus on the meritocracy. Focus on actually getting stuff done. You know, don't talk about the race-based stuff. Don't talk about the woke stuff. Don't talk about what's going on in the Ukraine. Don't talk about, arresting Putin when he pitches up in the country. Nobody gives a shit. But at the point at which you focus on actually getting stuff that works, turn us into a winning nation, people are actually going to come out and vote for that. And no one's talking about that.
What do you say, Pums? You can't just laugh. You laughed when Penuel said his thing earlier. All right.
Phumi is sitting firmly on the fence this morning.
No, it is not sitting on the fence. It's just, I feel like...
Said every person sitting on the fence.
I feel like a stuck record. Because, Penuel, people may know better people. They may know who those... And some of those better people know themselves. But you know where they are not. They're not on that ballot.
100%.
And so you have to vote. This is the system that we have, right? But if people don't put themselves up to be voted for, if you do not have the best 11 saying, here we are, and we are ready to take on this, and at the same time, if you want to say some guy who is being the best at his everyday job, by coming to your little business and checking your business and checking and signing the form and ticking the boxes that they need to tick. You want to say that person who is doing a great job in that job that they are doing, you're saying, how do we corrupt this person so they stop being good at their job?
But if they're going to check on the same liquor store twice in a year, they're not doing their job. They're fucking around.
Maybe it's three people.
Yeah, well.
It's not the same person. It's three people great at doing their job, and this is what has landed on their table.
It's just sheltered
and you're
employment.
Saying, how do I corrupt this person so that they stop being good at their job? And on the other side, the people who may be great at doing their job are not saying, I'm going to do this job. And so you're stuck with Stella Ndabeni.
Don't put the horse before the cart. Because here, this guy is trying to run his liquor store. He's not trying. He didn't suggest corruption. Penuel and I did.
Yeah. No, Penuel. Why is Penuel?
I did. I did.
All I'm saying is
the fact is, long before that happens, you've got this irritating bureaucrat who's making this guy do work that doesn't lead to profit, doesn't lead to any improvement in his business twice a year, and it's starting to wear him down. And it's already hard enough to run a business in this country at this stage, and now you're siding with some bureaucrats.
So we complain about the fact that the Metro Police are corrupt. We complain about the fact that they ask for ijojo, right?
And we should.
Because when they stop you, you're like, how do I get out of this ticket? Let me just give you this 20 rand, leave me alone.
Of course.
Then they know this is how people want us to behave, and they behave that way.
Can I respond to that quickly? No, can I respond to
yourselves.
that? No, just in that example, sorry. But you're right in principle. The reality when a person pays a bribe to, let's say, a traffic cop is it's an acknowledgement of a wrongdoing. But you want to streamline the punishment, the apology as quickly as possible and minimize the cost. You're still paying for doing something wrong. It's just not through the official channels, and it's not at a certain amount.
Just don't do the wrong thing.
So if the traffic department or JMPD were to make it easier and cheaper to apologize for being wrong, we wouldn't pay bribes. Just means we pay too much, and it's too much work to get the ticket and go to the courts.
I'm with you.
But in principle, you're 100% correct. Yeah. That yes, we do have to respect certain parts of the rules.
But this is why South Africa is where it is. Right? As South Africans, we want to break the rules, and then we want to complain that the rules are broken.
We are forced to break the rules because we can't afford to do things the right way. If you look at that whole list that Ricardo sent, pay as you earn, UIF, compensation fund, etc. It's for the ordinary person and affording minimum wage. Our politicians, and no one's ever asked Cyril, because apparently he's got foreigners working at Palapala. No one's asked them, how did these people come here? Do they have work permits, etc.? There are a lot of people at the highest levels that aren't even paying minimum wage. They're already breaking the laws. We cannot afford to comply. We'd love to. I'd love to be able to pay a 2,000 Rand ticket, but it's cheaper to pay $100 to a cop, say I'm sorry, and keep it moving. It's not because we don't want to comply and do the right thing, in my opinion.
So start your gang. Get your 400 people that can do this job better.
But
Get on the ballot and let's put you.
I think these are the questions people weigh up in their
power.
heads every day. I think this is what people are trying to deal with every day. They're trying to find a way to make the system work. And Kanthan, you pointed out earlier that it's the uncertainty. It's the fact that sometimes the law applies, sometimes it doesn't. And again, without abdicating responsibility for this as a citizen, which Phumi feels strongly about, the fish rots from the head. How can we be expected to follow the rules at the bottom of the system as ordinary citizens if the people who lead the system and who make the rules do not follow them themselves? And that isn't an excuse. That's actually a critique of the entire system and all the laws, because either you follow all of them or you follow none of them. And I think most South Africans are electing to follow none of them because that's what our leaders have shown us is acceptable.
Lalela.
There's no argument there.
Anthony is there. We have a chance in 12 months' time to replace all of these people who talk about meritocracies and then elect people with the matric over people with doctorates and PhDs and experience.
Or just people who are moral and ethical.
This is our chance. This is our chance. It's our chance to do two things. It is our chance to mobilize the people around you. So Penuel talked about the number of people who are available to vote versus the number of people who did vote. It is a chance for you to mobilize your people to all band in, join your gang, and vote your gang into power and let those people change the system.
If it's a gang, and that's the word you used, Penuel.
It is.
How is that different to the people of, say, Harry Smith not so long ago deciding to take charge of their own water and sorting out their own plumbing at their own cost and just counting the municipality out completely? I think that's good.
And the people that are currently trying to go off-grid,
Yeah.
that ESCOM is shutting down.
Right. Which is ESCOM being the gangster, not them.
But this is the counter to Phumi's point. So Phumi says, set up a gang, and our argument is the system squashes you when you're trying to do that. When you're trying to do the right thing, when you're trying to bring in independent candidates in the best way to
Throw
say,
them out.
this is the... No, I'm saying it's nice to say that, and we agree on principle, but the reality is they've built this structure in such a way that it is tough. Kanthan spoke about his experiences, and he spoke about the Trojan horse, etc. The reality is we will vote for independence, some of us. The rest of the majority will do whatever because the education system is so bad that is run by the people in power. But it is going to be difficult for us to legitimately and through merit get people in there. Today, there's talks of if you want to be president of this country, you need R1 billion. Not that you need to create jobs, not that you need to be the best candidate. Imagine if to become Springbok captain, you needed 5 million Rand. Siya Kolisi would have never made it. And that's where we are politically. It's not based on service. It's not based on your track record.
It's
based on how much money you have to campaign and
Not even campaign. What
is the word you used in the DRC
to facilitate
for these things to happen?
Well, that's what happened in Nazareth.
We would like to change. We're all on the same side.
Nothing worth doing is easy.
And Nazareth was a facilitation.
So do the hard work.
I mean, do we agree that like what happened at Nazareth was a facilitation?
100%.
With some chocha.
100%.
Okay, so let's just talk about this quickly because I think this is quite an interesting point. Congo Chris reckons, by your logic, Phumi, Oranje should be an independent state.
They can go for it.
So
they can do it.
Phumi agrees. She says that
I don't have a problem with Oranje independence. I don't have a problem with Western Cape independence.
Nothing worth doing is easy, guys.
Yes.
I would like nothing better than for Gauteng to be independent because we generate more than 50% of the wealth of the country here.
Yeah.
For us to get to a point of what we call political freedom today, the rules weren't followed. That's why the ANC and other parties were called terrorist organizations. That's why when you speak about following the rules and those things, it's nice. But the reality is, yes, we want to change things, but we almost have to set up gangs, pay bribes, etc., and fight the system.
Well, there are legal and illegal ways of doing this.
100%.
I mean, we talk about the illegal ones like the bribes. And of course, many South Africans are complicit in that stuff. So we can't then say, oh, well, we're the good ones because we're part of the problem.
100%.
Absolutely.
And I
Just want to say for the record, Gareth, I've never paid a bribe. And I will.
No, okay, good for you. I
Yeah.
have. And I probably will do again. But I don't think that that's the same as joining a gang in the form of you joining AfriForum, for example, who you think are a civic organization who will represent the interests you care about.
Sure.
And you don't care about whether or not they regard you as a black man or a English-speaking man or something else. You've joined them because you're interested in their values.
True.
Or you think they represent something that you care about.
Yeah, or you share values.
And you should be able to. I mean, I think, there are plenty of good organizations that we've spoken to, Songezo Zibi, for example. We've spoken about a number of NGOs that have started up just recently. We had Musi on just the other day with one, what is it called now?
Build One
The
South
one
Africa.
South Africa.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it started out from one movement.
Bossa.
SA.
So all of these things are starting to make a difference in small ways and big ones. And you don't have to only do the bad things. You can also do the good things. But it seems that you're going to need some money to do this. And the unfortunate thing in this country is whether you're joining an organization, you're paying a bribe, or you're just trying to live your life, you need money. And most people in this country don't have any because we don't have a growing economy. So what do people who have no money do? They just have to deal with whatever comes at them, right?
Federalism is another topic that we'll need to discuss at some point as a nation, because Orania and Independent Cape, I know the King Zwelithini of the Zulus, before he passed on, at some point was threatening to make the Ngonyama Trust land independent. Federalism, along with meritocracy, these are terms that I think the average South African at the bottom doesn't know, doesn't care about.
And might like if you explained it to them.
100%.
Yeah.
And civil organizations, because there is a life beyond politics. There is service. There is Imtiaz Suleiman and the Gift of the Givers. There is AfriForum and Soltech and the work that they've done. And what we need from South Africans for active citizenry is for them to follow the leaders, to follow the groups, gangs, whatever you want to call it, that are actually doing the work. And then whether legally, illegally, to make sure that those people are given the powers, the budgets to actually effect change. Getting the best small business activists in the country to actually, people like Alan Reyes, to actually be part of government and ensure that the money goes to the right people, removes red tape, creates jobs, etc. But like I said, it's gonna require education. If it's not at school level, which is probably not going to happen, then it's through platforms like the one we have today, social media, TikTok.
Now people
YouTube,
can find this stuff.
etc.
They can find this stuff if they want to find it.
If you're having a watch party for the coronation, people can have seriously.
You're right.
People can have like their stockfels and talk about these things. And if each one of us, if there are 1,000 of us listening to this show right now, and each one of us were to have a conversation with 5 people, that's what
5,000
it means.
people, and then those 5 and blah blah blah.
And
So
that's
it
what it
exponentially
means.
increases.
It means that each one of us have to actively
Canton's smiling.
be part of the solution. Don't pay the bribe. Just get somebody to go out and vote the way that you think they should be voting. Convince them.
Gareth, I was just chuckling at one of our viewers who's suggesting that I'm being economic with the truth in terms of whether or not I've actually paid bribes.
All right. Well, I've never heard anyone hammer at a keyboard like you did, Canton. I had to mute your mic a couple of times. I feel sorry for your computer.
Jeez.
That thing must last a maximum of a day or two. Oh, you got one of those keyboards. Okay, so that thing must last a couple of weeks. Thank you very much for being on the show this morning, Penuel. People are seemingly loving you in the comments here, but then maybe they're just the ones who agree with you.
Maybe
the ones who don't agree with you are not commenting.
Oh, they're all on Twitter. Those guys, they bash me every day.
Penuel, you're on TikTok as well. People need to find you there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm not on TikTok, neither is Phumi, but you can find Penuel there.
It's a platform, guys. Wherever you can get a platform that
you
can
handle
reach
that one
people
for us. I'll handle this
and
one.
change lives, then
Between us, we absolutely, as
your
Phumi
Stokvel.
says, your Stokvel, start your gang.
100%.
Let's make gang a non-dirty word from here on in. Canton, thank you. Phumi, thank you. And Penuel, very good to have you with us. And of course, thank you to you for joining us this morning. We will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m.